All right, so continue with this. We've got x minus 5 fourths there times x minus 5 fourths. And we're going to put that together. We're going to say it's x minus 5 fourths squared because there's two of them being multiplied. And then over here on the right-hand side, we're going to need to get a common denominator here. So again, if you want, you can do this in your calculator. You can do negative 3 halves plus 25 divided by 16 equals, and then hit the math frac button. And it'll put you as a fraction for you. Or I could go ahead and get a common denominator, multiply by 8, multiply by 8. I get to negative 24 sixteenths plus 25 sixteenths. And then I add my numerators there together. I get 1, and then write down my common denominator of 16. So now we can go ahead. We've got our nice perfect square there. So let's take the square root of both sides. When I do that on the left-hand side, I get x minus 5 fourths. On the right-hand side, I can take the square root of 1 up there, I get 1. I can take the square root of my denominator down there, I get 4. So now I just got to simply bring over 5 fourths. So I'm going to add 5 fourths to both sides. So I really get x equals positive 1/4 plus 5 fourths. And I get x equals negative 1/4 plus 5 fourths. The nice thing with this is they got a nice common denominator there. So common denominator here is 4. Add my numerators, I get 6. Reduce it down, 3 halves, because 2 goes into both of those. And then negative 1/4 plus 5 fourths there, common denominator is 4. Negative 1 plus 5 there is 4. So then I get my two values there are 1 and 3 halves. Notice it's not a plus or minus answer. It's a 1 and then 3 halves there. Completely kind of different answers there. It's not plus or minus 1. So make sure you go ahead and add that 5 fourths to both of those values. Don't leave it as x minus 5 fourths. Alright, so our next one here, solve by completing the square there. We've got x squared plus x minus 5 sixteenths equals 0 there. To do one like this, notice our a value is already 1. So I'm going to bring my c value over on the other side like we've been doing all along. So I get x squared plus x equals 5 sixteenths. Now I'm going to take my b value, divide by 2, and square and add to both sides. Notice my b value in here is 1 this time. So I can take 1 divided by 2 and square it and add to both sides. So there we have that. So now I'm going to factor this left-hand side here. So factor that, x times x. So it multiplies to give me a positive value and adds to give me a positive value as well. Well, remember what I told you, that the trick here is before you square what's underneath this squared here term, before I square it, that's actually what's going to go in here. So it's a half times a half. I could have cleaned this up in here and said x squared plus x plus 1/4 if I wanted to, because that's what that would be. And then over here, 5 sixteenths plus 1/4. So, and you can tell in here, 1/2 times 1/2 is 1/4. And then 1/2 plus 1/2 gives you a 1 in the center there. So your b value, 1/2 plus 1/2 there gives you 1. So that works. Put that together as 1. It'd be x plus 1/2 squared equals, over here you need a common denominator. I'm going to get 16. Or again, you can put in your calculator 5 sixteenths plus 1/4. You can go 5 divided by 16 plus 1 divided by 4 equals, hit the math frac. It will tell you what the fraction is. So over here, if I get the common denominator, 5 sixteenths plus 4 sixteenths, and I get 9 sixteenths. So now I'm simply going to go ahead and take the square root of both sides. Don't forget it's plus or minus. So you get x plus 1/2 on the left-hand side. Over here, plus or minus the square root of 9 up in the numerator there is 3. The denominator, the square root of 16, there is 4. So now I'm going to subtract 1/2 to get x all by itself, and I get x equals a positive 3/4 minus 1/2, and I get x equals a negative 3/4 minus 1/2. And again, to do this, you could get a common denominator, or you could use that math frac button again. Common denominator would be 4. So I really get 3/4 minus 2/4, which gives me 1/4. Over here, common denominator equals 4. So I end up getting a negative 3/4 minus 2/4, which gives me a negative 5/4. So I have 1/4 and negative 5/4 as my two solutions there. So let's look here at the quadratic formula here. We can actually derive the quadratic formula, and to do that, we can just follow steps through by completing the square. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to start here with ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, and I'm going to get it right down to that nice quadratic formula. So my first step always in this, if I were to complete the square with this, and incidentally, you don't need to know how this here. I'm just going to show you how you can use complete the square and how we got the quadratic formula there from. So using the complete the square here, I can divide everything in here by a, following my steps right through that we've been doing. Just cleaning it up right now. So now I'm going to do what I've done all along. I'm going to bring my c term on the other side. So I've got x squared plus b over a times x equals negative c over a. And now I'm going to start to complete the square here. I'm going to take b divided by a there and divide by 2, but in our case here, remember, I've got a fraction I want to multiply by 1/2 and square it and add to both sides. So I'm going to go ahead and take b over, and then if I multiply that, I get b over 2a squared. So b over 2a squared plus b over 2a squared. So now I've added that to both sides there. I'm going to go ahead and square those. So I get x squared plus b over ax plus in here I get b squared over squaring the 2a down here, I get 4a squared equals negative c over a plus b squared over 4a squared. Let me give myself a little bit more room down here. So now that I added that side, I can go ahead and factor that side. What times what gives me x squared, x and x. Multiplies to give me a plus and adds to give me a plus, will be plus plus. Remember I told you what goes in there before you square it and you've cleaned it up there. We're going to put that b over 2a in here. B over 2a in here. And then over there on the right hand side there, we can start to get a nice common denominator. So common denominator is going to be 4a squared. So I'm going to multiply my numerator and denominator here by 4a. So up in here, I'm going to get a negative 4ac over 4a squared plus b squared over 4a squared. On the right hand side, or left hand side here, I get there's 2x plus b over 2a's. Over here, I'm going to combine those. I get a negative 4ac plus b squared over the common denominator 4a squared. And let's see, what can we do next here? On the left hand side now, we got to get that, let's pause that thing. So I'm going to go ahead now and take the square root of both sides here, just like we've been doing. So on the left-hand side here, we just get x plus b over 2a. Over on the right-hand side, I can start to kind of clean that up. I'm going to reverse that numerator there. I'm going to say b squared minus 4ac all over 4a squared. I'm going to keep cleaning up that right-hand side there. I can take the square root of the denominator down there, 4a squared. If I take the square root of that, I get 2a. And then the numerator there I can leave as square root of b squared minus 4ac. And then the last thing I'm going to do here is bring minus b over 2a over on the other side. So I end up getting x equals negative b over 2a. And I missed a step up here, one little thing. I forgot to do plus or minus when I took the square root of both sides. These plus or minuses were all supposed to be in here. So coming back down here, we get plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So all I did over here is I went ahead and subtracted b over 2a from both sides here. So I end up getting negative b over 2a plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So now if we want to put the whole thing, it's got a nice common denominator there. We can go negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over the nice common denominator of 2a. So there we got it down to the nice quadratic formula. So again, just showing you how that actually came to be using completing the square. You don't have to know that, you don't have to do that on a test, but I just wanted to show you how that all came to be. So you get to decide if you're gonna, well, some situations you're gonna want to use the quadratic formula. The easiest ones to use to complete in the square with are, if you get a choice, is if your a term here is 1 and your b term in here is even. So that makes it pretty easy. Most people seem to be really comfortable using the quadratic formula, but you got to get comfortable with factoring, completing the square, and using the quadratic formula. So your choice of what you want to use. So again, we could use the quadratic formula on this if we wanted to, and just plug our values in there. And then don't forget we also have factoring. So I'm going to do the factoring one and not the quadratic formula one because you guys know how to use the quadratic formula. So factoring here, what multiplies to give us AC, which is negative 10, and adds to give us a B there. That would be a negative 5 and a 2. So using the x method, I use 2x squared plus 2x minus 5x minus 5 equals 0. Factor by grouping. GCF there is 2x. I'm left with x plus 1. Over here, GCF is negative 5. I'm x with x plus 1. GCF of those two is x plus 1. And I'm left with 2x minus 5. And then if you remember, I can take this one here, x plus 1 equals 0. And I can take 2x minus 5 equals 0 and solve for x. So I get x equals negative 1. And then over here, I can add 5. I get 2x equals 5. Divide by 2, and x equals 5 halves. So I have myself my two solutions. So there's your homework there. Use completing the square on at least these. And the other ones, you can decide what method you want to use, but use completing the square on those. And then these other ones, you can opt. Are you going to use the quadratic formula, or are you going to use factoring, or are you going to use completing the square? It's up to you. So there's your homework.